The vast conference hall gleamed with soft blue light, reflecting off polished surfaces where representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations gathered. At the center stood Jay Park, Earth's lead diplomatic strategist, his calm demeanor masking generations of carefully guarded secrets. For 3,000 years, humanity had cultivated a reputation of peaceful cooperation. Other galactic civilizations saw humans as gentle negotiators, skilled mediators who resolved conflicts through conversation and compromise. What they didn't know was the intricate network of preparations that hummed beneath this peaceful exterior. Earth had transformed from a single planetary settlement to a complex, strategically positioned civilization. Colonies spread across multiple star systems, each seemingly innocent research outpost and diplomatic center concealing advanced technological capabilities. The humans had learned long ago that true strength wasn't about aggressive displays of power, but about patient, calculated preparation. Jay watched the holographic displays tracking interstellar communications. Each alien delegation believed they understood humanity, but they were tragically mistaken. Behind the smiles and diplomatic conversations, humanity had been developing technologies that would make most civilizations tremble. Quantum communication networks stretched across galaxies, invisible threads of connection that allowed instantaneous information transfer. Adaptive AI systems monitored potential threats, creating predictive models that could anticipate conflict scenarios decades, even centuries in advance. Nanotechnology had advanced to the point where entire planetary defense systems could be activated or transformed within milliseconds. The current Galactic Confederation meetings looked like routine diplomatic exchanges. Representatives from crystalline beings of Proxima Centauri discussed trade routes with silicon-based life forms from the Andromeda sectors. Humans sat quietly, listening, occasionally offering measured suggestions that seemed helpful but subtly redirected potential tensions. Jay remembered the stories passed down through generations, how humanity had survived its own destructive periods, learned from near-extinction events, and transformed those painful lessons into a sophisticated global and eventually interstellar strategy. They had become masters of long-term thinking, understanding that true power resided in preparation, not immediate action. Around him, holographic displays showed complex relationship maps between different civilizations. Each connection, each potential conflict point was meticulously tracked. What appeared to be simple diplomatic software was actually an incredibly advanced predictive system that could model potential galactic conflicts with near-perfect accuracy. The other civilizations saw humans as neutral, almost bureaucratic participants in galactic affairs. They didn't realize that every conversation, every treaty, every seemingly insignificant diplomatic interaction was part of a much larger, more complex strategy. Young diplomats trained for decades, learning not just languages and cultural nuances, but complex psychological manipulation techniques. They were taught to be patient, to think not in years or decades, but in centuries. Each diplomatic mission was a carefully choreographed dance, with moves planned generations in advance. Technological development followed a similar pattern. While other civilizations rushed to create immediate, impressive weapons and communication systems, humans invested in adaptive, scalable technologies that could evolve and transform. Their research facilities looked mundane, their scientists appeared ordinary, but the innovations happening behind those unassuming walls were revolutionary. Jay adjusted his simple gray uniform, a deliberate choice that made him blend into the background. No flashy colors, no ostentatious displays of rank or achievement. Just quiet, consistent competence. As the conference continued, he noticed subtle interactions, a slight gesture here, a carefully worded statement there. To untrained eyes, these were meaningless. But to someone who understood humanity's long-term strategy, each movement was a carefully placed chess piece. The other civilizations would never suspect. They saw peace and believed it meant weakness. They didn't understand that humanity's peaceful exterior was the most sophisticated defensive mechanism in the known universe. And when the time came, and Jay knew it would come, they would be utterly unprepared for what humanity had been preparing for, silently and patiently, for thousands of years. A slight smile crossed Jay's face. Just a hint of what was to come, the first signs of invasion appeared without warning. Massive alien ships materialized at the edges of human-controlled space, their dark metallic hulls blocking out entire star systems. The Kral, a civilization known for their brutal conquest strategies, had finally decided to test humanity's perceived weakness. Commander Wu Kim stood at the primary defense station, his eyes scanning multiple holographic displays. Unlike most military leaders, he remained unervingly calm. Years of training and generational preparation had taught humans that panic was the most ineffective response to any threat. The Kral communication channels burst with aggressive declarations. Their lead commander, a towering reptilian creature named Vex, broadcasted a message across all frequencies: humanity will submit or be destroyed. Your peaceful reputation ends today. Invasion points appeared simultaneously across 12 human colony systems. Advanced plasma weapons fired, destroying outer defense platforms. Smaller attack ships swarmed like angry insects, targeting communication relays and research stations. To any other civilization, this would have been a devastating first strike. But humans had been waiting. In orbital stations and planetary bases, personnel moved with calculated precision. No rushed movements, no visible panic. Each soldier and technician knew exactly what to do, as if they had rehearsed this scenario 1,000 times. Wu Kim's fingers hovered over a simple-looking console. To an outside observer, it might have seemed like an ordinary control panel. But every circuit, every connection was a result of 3,000 years of technological evolution. The Kral attack groups pushed deeper into human territories. They destroyed several outer colonies, believing each victory brought them closer to total conquest. Their battle tactics were aggressive, designed to overwhelm through sheer destructive power. What they didn't know was that each destroyed colony was part of humanity's larger strategy. These were not random settlements, but carefully positioned observation points. Every lost station transmitted critical data back to Central Command, creating a comprehensive map of Kral invasion tactics. On Earth, massive underground facilities hummed with activity. Advanced AI systems processed invasion data in microseconds, creating adaptive response strategies. Quantum communication networks transferred information faster than light, allowing instantaneous coordination across multiple star systems. Wu noticed something peculiar about the Kral attack patterns. They were predictable, almost textbook in their approach. It was as if they had studied human defensive strategies and believed they had found perfect counters. But humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. The first wave of Kral ships approached a seemingly defenseless human research station. Their weapons charged, ready to obliterate another target. Suddenly, something changed. The station's exterior began to shift, molecular structures rearranging in ways that defied conventional physics. Adaptive camouflage systems, developed over centuries, transformed the entire station. What looked like a vulnerable target became an impenetrable fortress within seconds. Kral weapon systems, designed for traditional combat, suddenly found themselves ineffective. Wu allowed himself a small smile. The real game was just beginning. Across human-controlled space, similar scenarios played out. Colonies that seemed vulnerable revealed hidden defensive capabilities. Communication systems the Kral thought they had destroyed continued to function through backup quantum networks. The invasion was proceeding exactly as humanity had anticipated. Not as a surprise attack, but as a carefully orchestrated demonstration of preparedness. Vax, the Kral commander, began to realize something was wrong. Their battle simulations, their years of conquest strategies, seemed completely ineffective against an opponent that refused to fight in expected ways. Humanity wasn't just defending. They were teaching a lesson about the true meaning of strategic preparation. As the first wave of the invasion continued, one thing became crystal clear: the Kral had made a terrible mistake. They had challenged a civilization that had spent 3,000 years waiting for exactly this moment. And humanity was just getting started. Lieutenant Hannah Lee's fingers moved with precise, calculated movements across the holographic interface. Around her, the defense station hummed with a quiet intensity that felt more like a well-orchestrated symphony than a military operation. The Kral invasion had pushed deeper into human territories, believing their overwhelming firepower would crush any resistance. They were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity's true capabilities. Quantum networks came alive with a soft blue glow. Invisible energy patterns spread across space, connecting defense systems that had been dormant for centuries. Each network was a living, breathing system of adaptive intelligence, designed to respond to threats in ways no conventional military could comprehend. The first Krall battleships began to experience strange disruptions. Their advanced weapon systems started to malfunction. Navigation computers went haywire. Weapon targeting became impossible as invisible quantum interference scrambled their most sophisticated technologies. Hannah watched the holographic displays with a calm that would have seemed impossible to any other species facing such an invasion. Her team moved like a single organism, each member anticipating the next move before it happened. Adaptive weapons began their dance between enemy ships. These were not traditional missiles or energy weapons, but complex nanoswarm systems that could reshape themselves instantly. They moved like living things, finding the most vulnerable points in alien technology with uncanny precision. The Krall commanders started to panic. Their invasion fleet, which had seemed unstoppable moments ago, now looked like a collection of confused and vulnerable targets. Communication channels filled with desperate commands and increasing confusion. Prediction algorithms worked faster than human thought. Each Krall ship movement was calculated, countered, and neutralized before the aliens could even complete their tactical decisions. It was like watching a chess master play against someone who didn't even understand the basic rules of the game. Entire squadrons of Krall ships found themselves suddenly unable to communicate. Their advanced technological systems became useless, transformed by adaptive human defense networks that could rewrite fundamental operating protocols in milliseconds. What the Krall didn't understand was that humanity's peaceful reputation was itself a sophisticated weapon. While other civilizations had been developing aggressive technologies, humans had been creating something far more powerful. Intelligent, adaptive defense systems that could think and respond faster than any traditional military strategy. The invasion began to collapse from within. Krall ships started to turn on each other, their communication systems so thoroughly compromised that they could no longer distinguish friend from foe. Friendly fire became their greatest threat. Hannah's smile was subtle but unmistakable. This wasn't just a defense. This was a demonstration. Across multiple star systems, similar scenarios played out. What seemed like vulnerable human colonies transformed into impenetrable fortresses. Research stations became deadly traps. Communication relays turned into complex network weapons that could deconstruct alien technologies. The psychological impact was perhaps more devastating than the physical destruction. The Krall had come expecting a weak, peaceful civilization. Instead, they found a species that had been preparing for this moment for thousands of years. Every destroyed human outpost transmitted critical data. Every lost communication relay was part of a larger strategy. The humans were not just defending, they were learning, adapting, growing stronger with each moment of the conflict. Vex, the Krall commander, watched in growing horror as his invasion fleet became less and less effective. The humans didn't even seem to be trying hard. Their response was so efficient, so calculated, that it felt almost casual. As the first phase of the conflict concluded, one thing became crystal clear: humanity was not what the galaxy had believed them to be. They were not peaceful by weakness, but peaceful by choice. And when threatened, they could become something entirely different. The smile on Hannah's face said everything that needed to be said. The real game was just beginning. Admiral Sukmin stood on the bridge of the central command ship, his eyes reflecting the holographic displays that showed the rapidly changing battlefield. The Krall invasion, which had seemed unstoppable just hours ago, was now crumbling under humanity's strategic counterattack. Adaptive weapon systems began their most sophisticated performance. Nanoswarm technologies transformed between defensive and offensive capabilities in microseconds. Each Krall ship became a potential target, its own system slowly turning against it through complex quantum interference patterns. The first wave of human counterattacks looked almost elegant. Instead of massive destructive strikes, they used precise, calculated interventions that dismantled the alien fleet's communication and navigation systems. Entire squadrons found themselves suddenly blind, deaf, and increasingly vulnerable. Predictive AI systems worked faster than biological thought could comprehend. Every potential Krall movement was already countered before their commanders could even conceive the strategy. It was like watching a grandmaster play chess against someone who didn't understand the basic rules of the game. Suk watched as technological adaptations spread across the battlefield. What appeared to be simple communication relays transformed into complex defensive networks. Research stations that looked vulnerable became impenetrable fortresses that could deconstruct alien technologies faster than they could be assembled. The psychological warfare was perhaps more devastating than the physical attack. The Krall had come expecting a weak, diplomatic civilization. Instead, they discovered a species that had been preparing for this moment for thousands of years. Communication channels between Krall ships became increasingly chaotic. Their advanced technologies began to fail, replaced by complex human quantum networks that could rewrite fundamental operating systems in milliseconds. Ships started to turn against each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe. Diplomatic channels simultaneously activated. Other galactic civilizations watched in shock as humans systematically isolated the Krall. Trade routes were blocked, communication networks were disrupted, and support systems were efficiently dismantled. Suk allowed himself a small smile. This wasn't just a defense. This was a lesson. The human counterattack revealed technologies that defied conventional understanding. Terraforming-based defensive strategies could transform entire planetary environments, creating impossible defensive conditions. Adaptive camouflage systems made human ships and stations virtually undetectable until the moment of attack. Krall invasion points began to collapse. What had seemed like an unstoppable force now looked like a collection of confused and increasingly vulnerable targets. Their commanders watched in growing horror as their most advanced technologies became useless against an opponent they had completely misunderstood. Quantum communication networks allowed instantaneous coordination across multiple star systems. Each human unit moved with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. There was no panic, no confusion, just calculated, efficient response. The invasion was transforming into a systematic deconstruction of Krall military capabilities. Every lost ship, every destroyed communication relay became a learning opportunity for human defense systems. The aliens were teaching humanity about their technologies even as they were being defeated. Vex, the Krall commander, realized too late the magnitude of their mistake. Humanity was not a peaceful civilization because of weakness. They were peaceful by choice, and when threatened, they could become something entirely different. As the counterattack continued, the galaxy watched in stunned silence. The diplomatic, seemingly bureaucratic species had just demonstrated a level of technological and strategic sophistication that redefined understanding of interstellar conflict. Suk's final command was simple but devastating. The adaptive weapon systems began their most complex performance yet. A demonstration of humanity's true capabilities. The tide had not just turned. It had been controlled from the very beginning. The smile on Suk's face said everything that needed to be said. This was more than a battle. This was a message to the entire galaxy about what humanity truly was. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Yunji stepped forward. Representatives from 1,000 civilizations watched, their various biological forms tense with anticipation. Holographic displays showed the complete devastation of the Krall invasion fleet. What had begun as a seemingly unstoppable attack had been transformed into the most comprehensive defeat in galactic history. No massive destruction, no unnecessary violence, just a surgical, almost clinical dismantling of an entire civilization's military capabilities. "We have always been prepared," Yun began, her voice calm and measured. The translation systems carried her words to beings with hundreds of different sensory mechanisms, each hearing something slightly different yet understanding the core message. The Krall survivors sat in a designated area, their once proud reptilian forms now diminished. Their lead commander, Vex, looked like a defeated creature who had just realized the true meaning of miscalculation. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had taught a lesson that would echo through galactic history. Diplomatic representatives from other civilizations began to understand the deeper truth. Humanity's 3,000 years of peaceful cooperation had not been weakness, but the most sophisticated form of preparation imaginable. Every treaty, every diplomatic exchange, every seemingly insignificant interaction had been part of a larger strategy. Quantum data projections showed how human technologies had evolved. What looked like simple research stations were actually complex adaptive systems that could transform entire planetary environments. Communication networks that appeared basic could deconstruct and rebuild technological systems faster than biological thought could comprehend. Yoon continued her presentation. Each slide revealed another layer of humanity's preparation. Adaptive AI systems that could predict conflict scenarios centuries in advance. Nanotechnology that could reshape defensive capabilities in microseconds. Communication networks that could isolate and neutralize threats without firing a single destructive weapon. The Galactic Council representatives began to realize that everything they thought they knew about humanity was wrong. The species they had considered passive diplomats was actually the most strategically sophisticated civilization in known space. Vex attempted to speak, but was quickly silenced. The Krall's technological advantages had been completely neutralized. Their invasion had not just failed, it had become a comprehensive demonstration of human capabilities. Other alien civilizations started to understand the true meaning of humanity's approach. Peace was not weakness. Diplomacy was not a lack of capability. It was a choice, carefully maintained through generations of preparation. The presentation concluded with a simple message: humanity had been ready. Not just for this invasion, but for any potential threat. The peaceful exterior had been the most sophisticated weapon of all. As the meeting concluded, something changed in the galactic power dynamics. The perception of humanity shifted from passive diplomats to the most potentially dangerous civilization in known space. Not through aggression, but through intelligence, preparation, and an unmatched ability to adapt. Yoon's final words echoed through the hall: "We have always been watching. We have always been ready." The smile on her face was both a warning and an invitation. The galaxy would never be the same. Outside the council chambers, human diplomatic teams began the next phase of their strategy. The invasion was over, but the real work was just beginning. Diplomatic channels would be reopened, relationships would be carefully managed, and the lesson would be subtly reinforced. Humanity had demonstrated its true nature. Not as a warrior civilization, not as aggressive conquerors, but as a species that could transform potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding. The Krall invasion would become a legendary moment in galactic history. Not as a battle, but as the moment when everything changed. When one civilization revealed that peace was not a sign of weakness, but the most sophisticated form of strength imaginable. And they had just smiled.